When 12 robberies struck, the Maid's incredible calm revealed an unexpected life-changing secret. The town of Harmonywood was spiraling into chaos. 12 robberies in just 3 weeks had shaken its core. But amidst the fear and distress, Julia, a 46-year-old maid, remained an unwavering presence. As autumn leaves dressed the streets in fiery reds and golds, the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger. Families were struggling. Storefronts lay abandoned, forgotten. And yet, Julia was a fortress of calm, cleaning rooms at the local hotel with grace and dignity, while her heart broke quietly each day for her estranged daughter, Sarah. At the same time, whispers filled the small town. Could the tight-knit community have a thief in their midst? Each theft deepened the anxiety, fracturing bonds that once thrived on trust. While others turned their backs, Julia stepped forward, her nurturing spirit shining through. Her eyes were pools of compassion, her small acts of kindness keeping an eye on the single parents, and the elderly reflected the depth of her resilience. But Sarah only saw the weight of their family's expectations upon her shoulders. She didn't understand how her mother could wield patience like a shield. The latest theft, a brazen act during a charity event, sent shockwaves through Harmonywood. Tensions soared at the community meeting that followed, where fearful neighbors turned on Julia, demanding answers. The room crackled with suspicion, voices rising. "You must know something," one woman yelled, anger twisting her face. But Julia, ever calm, stood before them. "In chaos, we must find strength together. Don't let fear drive you apart." There was no peace in her words, only cold glares met her as Sarah's disappointment cut deeper than the accusations surrounding them. In that moment, Julia felt an ache of isolation. Her heart yearned for the connection with her daughter, but instead felt like a docked boat missing its anchor amidst the turbulent waves of distrust. Behind her graceful exterior lay years of silent sacrifice, tending to the community's unspoken needs. She created a network to support those hurt by the robberies, quietly giving them hope without ever drawing attention to herself. Fearful of vulnerability, she hid her acts of compassion, afraid of judgment from neighbors who now looked at her sideways. Just when hope seemed fleeting, a knock echoed through her humble home late one evening. It was the latest robbery victim, a single mother overwhelmed by despair. Julia's heart raced. This moment could change everything, but standing across the room was Sarah, her eyes mirroring confusion and hurt. The air thickened with unspoken emotions. Julia wrestled internally. Did she reveal the truth behind her discreet efforts, risking rejection not just from Sarah, but from the town itself? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every heartbeat grew heavy with tension, as Julia stood at a crossroads. Would she keep her secret or finally allow the light of her quiet contributions to break through the shroud of fear? The final confrontation loomed, an emotional tempest threatening to either mend the fragile threads of their relationship or tear them apart forever. Would her inner strength be recognized as the beacon of hope they so desperately needed, or would fear and doubt snuff it out? The answer lingered in the charged air, leaving them both hanging on the edge of uncertainty. The knock echoed louder, slicing through the thick tension in the room. Julia felt her knees quiver slightly, the weight of her emotions almost too heavy to bear. She glanced at the single mother standing before her, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. This woman, who had experienced unspeakable loss from the recent wave of thefts, needed her comfort and guidance. But how could Julia offer support when her own daughter looked on in disbelief? "Please, I just don't know what to do," the woman whimpered, her voice cracking like dry leaves underfoot. Julia's heart clenched at the sight. That familiar pain of helplessness crept in, wrapping around her like a heavy cloak. She should have been the first to approach this woman. Yet here she was, bearing witness to a moment pregnant with possibilities that both frightened and excited her. "Come in," Julia managed, her voice steady yet warm. The woman stepped over the threshold, a fragile figure weighed down by despair. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, arms crossed tightly like a barricade, her expression a mixture of confusion and concern. Julia knew she had to tread carefully. As soon as the door closed behind them, Julia turned her focus fully on the mother. "Tell me everything," she urged gently, her heart opening like a blossom in spring. The room felt smaller, charged with emotions that danced in the dim light. They spoke quietly, sharing the rawness of loss and vulnerability, as Julia offered counsel while stealing glances at Sarah. The more she listened, the more Julia's heart swelled with purpose. "You are not alone in this," she whispered, her voice imbued with a strength born out of years spent caring for others. "You have support and we can help each other heal." But Sarah's brows knitted tighter, the confusion morphing into anger. Why was her mother so intent on sharing her life's energy with others when it seemed like they were losing a battle to reclaim their own family? As the mother left, gratitude glimmering in her eyes, Julia felt her heart begin to mend, just slightly. But an urgency to reach Sarah marched to the forefront of her mind. "Sweetheart," Julia called, her voice laced with gentleness. "You have to understand I'm doing this to show we all have something valuable to give, even in the darkest times. I want to help." Sarah remained silent, her expression hardening. "Mom, you're helping everyone else just makes it seem like you don't care about us." She shot back, launching her words like arrows dipped in hurt. "Don't you see? You're all busy with others, while we Sarah," Julia interjected, feeling the ache settle deeper within her. "No one matters to me more than you. It's just I don't know how to make you see." Julia hesitated, searching for the right words, her mind racing, heart aching. Was she risking too much by revealing her vulnerability? The life of quiet service she led might be seen as an act of neglect to Sarah, when in truth it was all tied together by love. "If only you understood," she murmured, more to herself than anyone. "This past year it has been difficult beyond measure. All I want is to show people they're not alone." Sarah's expression faltered, but Julia didn't have time to explore the softness in her daughter's gaze. A sudden thought crashed into her mind, a nagging feeling that the dots in her life were lining up in strange but revealing ways. What if this was about more than just the robberies or the estrangement? What if she could help unearth the truth that could heal both their hearts? As she searched Sarah's face for a sign of understanding, determination flickered within. However, they stood on a precipice, edges blurring between past wounds and potential healing. "I need to show you," Julia finally whispered, feeling the stakes rise higher. "There's so much I haven't shared with you." Would Sarah listen? Would she take the step into the light rather than retreat into shadow? Just as Julia opened her mouth to speak again, the front door swung open, the sound of hurried footsteps breaking their moment. A frantic knock reverberated through the hall. What could this mean now? "Mom, who is it?" Sarah asked, her previous tension easing as curiosity swept through the air. Julia felt her stomach twist with the unexpected turn. "I don't know," she admitted, worry creeping into her voice. "But it's definitely not over yet." The door flew open, leaving their private world behind as someone entered with need etched across their face. And in this moment, with hearts half exposed and truths waiting to erupt, everything hung delicately in the balance. Would this new arrival draw them closer or pull them further apart? The figure that entered was a young boy, no older than 10, breathless and visibly shaken. His dark eyes darted around the room, searching for a safe space, a refuge from whatever had sent him running. Julia instinctively knelt to his level, concern pouring from her. "Hey there, little buddy. What's wrong?" The boy hesitated, biting his lower lip as urgency flickered across his face. "They took my mom, they took her car," he blurted out, tears glistening in the corners of his eyes. "She was just getting her groceries," and his voice trailed off into a mixture of fear and disbelief. Julia's heart sank. The recent thefts were becoming increasingly brazen, and now they had reached a new level of chaos. As she glanced at Sarah, she could see the disbelief replaced with something akin to fear. What kind of world were they living in? "Come on," Let us get you some water, Julia said, her tone soothing but firm. She gestured for the boy to follow her to the kitchen, her maternal instincts kicking in. Sarah walked silently behind them, her earlier anger fading in the face of this new crisis. Once at the kitchen counter, Julia poured a glass of water, trying to maintain her calm. You don't have to worry. We'll help your mom. What's your name? Eli, he replied, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the glass. I don't know where she is. I was supposed to go with her. With each word, Julia's heart ached. How many more families were like Eli's, caught in the turmoil of loss and uncertainty? She felt a wave of determination wash over her. Eli, I promise we'll figure this out. You're not alone. Sarah was watching intently, though her expression remained conflicted. Julia could see her processing. Understanding dawned amidst the chaos. Maybe we should call the police? Sarah suggested, her voice low but resolute. Yes. That's a great idea, Julia affirmed, grateful for her daughter's insight. Eli, we're gonna call for help, okay? You're safe here with us. Fear still etched in his face, Eli nodded slowly, as if the act of calling for help could shift the tides of anxiety. Julia reached for her phone, hands shaking slightly as she dialed. She glanced at Sarah and saw her daughter's eyes glistening with unshed tears of empathy. For Eli, for the other families they had encountered, and perhaps for their own fragile bond. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Julia asked, trying to keep her voice steady as she began to speak to the dispatcher. Eli launched into a hurried explanation, recounting how a stranger had approached his mother while she unloaded groceries from the car and taken off down the street with her vehicle. Listening to him, Julia's heart pounded. How many more children like Eli would be affected if this continued? She felt the weight of responsibility, the need to fight for their safety. The police would come, but this was just a band-aid on a deep wound. As she ended the call, Julia turned to Sarah and Eli. Help is on the way. But just as a flicker of relief flared within her, she noticed something in the corner of her eye, a reflection of light from outside. A gray sedan was parked idly across the street, engine running. The figure behind the wheel seemed to be watching them. Mom, what's that car doing? Sarah pointed, her brows furrowed again with concern. Julia felt her pulse quicken, instinctively stepping closer to the window, curiosity and fear intertwining. I don't know, she whispered, but let us be careful. Eli clutched his glass tightly as Julia's protective instincts kicked into high gear. What if it was related to Eli's mother? What if they hadn't heard the last of the chaos? As the seconds ticked by, the tension in the air thickened. They could either retreat to safety or confront the unknown. Julia felt the pull toward action, her heart racing as she debated their next step. In that moment, with uncertainty weighing heavy around them, a deep-seated realization struck her there was no time to waste. Let us go see what they want, she said, determination igniting her words. As the three of them slowly moved toward the door, Julia couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to step into something much larger than any of them could contain. What awaited them outside? Would they find help or stumble into more danger? As Julia, Sarah, and Eli edged closer to the door, a chill settled in the room. Each creak of the old wood beneath their feet echoed the racing pulses within them. Julia's mind spun with questions. Who was in that car? What did they want? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the front yard. The gray sedan remained motionless, its presence looming like a storm cloud. Julia could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Eli's small fingers tightened around the glass, turning his knuckles pale. Maybe we shouldn't go out there, Sarah murmured, her voice trembling slightly. No, we need to know, Julia replied, her own resolve wavering. She opened the door slowly, the crack revealing a sliver of the outside world. Stay close, all of you. The trio stepped out onto the porch, the lingering warmth of the day fading quickly. Julia squinted through the fading light at the gray sedan, anxiety churning in her stomach. She took a step forward, driven by a mix of concern for Eli's mother and the growing sense of unease about the stranger watching them. Eli was glued behind her, his small frame trembling. Julia turned to him, her expression softening. It's gonna be okay, Eli. Just stick with us. She glanced back at Sarah, who stood with her arms wrapped around herself. Uncertainty etched on her face. Mom, what if they're dangerous? Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Then we're ready, Julia replied, steeling herself. She took a breath, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. Just be brave. We don't know what's going to happen, but we can face it together. With one final gulp of air, she stepped off the porch, the grass cool beneath her feet. The street was quiet, almost eerie, as she approached the car. The figure inside remained still, head slightly tilted, eyes hidden beneath the shadow of a cap. Hello? Julia called out, her voice trembling but firm. Can I help you? A few long moments passed, and the figure shifted. Slowly, the driver's door creaked open, and a tall man stepped out. Julia felt a wave of instinctive fear wash over her. He was unkempt, scruffy, with deep lines etched into his face, but his eyes, those unnaturally bright eyes, were locked onto her. I'm looking for a kid, he said, his voice rough yet strangely calm. Eli Owens. Is that you? Her heart plummeted. I'm sorry, but who are you? Julia's protective instincts surged. She stepped slightly in front of Eli, shielding him without thought. I'm a friend of his mom, he replied, glancing nervously around as if expecting someone. She's in trouble. I need to take him to her. Are you the reason she was taken? Julia shot back, the words spilling out. She glanced at Eli, who was confused and scared, his mouth agape in shock. No, no, the man exclaimed, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. She sent me to find him. She thought. Julia's thoughts raced. Was this truly a friend? Or was he lying? She looked back at Sarah and Eli. The decision was in her hands, but with their breaths mingling in the cool air, the weight of uncertainty pressed around them like an unwanted blanket. Mom, what should we do? Sarah whispered, her voice laced with concern. Julia's heart raced. What if she made the wrong choice? Before she could respond, the man's expression shifted. Listen, please. I swear you have to trust me. Time is running out. Julia's mind was in a whirlwind. She could hear the clock ticking away, counting down to a moment that could change everything for Eli, perhaps for all of them. Mom? Eli's small voice pulled her from her thoughts, a hopeful glimmer in his eyes. But what was the right call? Would trusting him unlock their path to safety, or would it spiral them deeper into chaos? As she weighed the possibilities, a decision hung in the balance, and Julia couldn't shake the growing sense of impending doom. With her heart pounding in her chest, she asked the question that would determine their fate. How do I know you're telling the truth? The man took a cautious step closer, his eyes darting between Julia and the door they had just left behind. Because I have something from her, he said, his voice a mix of urgency and desperation. He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out a small, worn-out locket. It glimmered faintly under the dim light, but Julia could see the familiar pattern etched across it. A floral design that had once been vibrant. It belonged to Eli's mother. Do you believe me now? He pressed, his gaze steady and fierce. Julia's heart raced. She needed to decide quickly, but the sight of the locket brought a flood of memories. Eli's mom had worn that every day, a symbol of the love she held for them. It was a lifeline that pulled Julia into fragile hope, but it also brought questions. Just because you have that doesn't mean you're safe, she murmured, glancing at Eli, whose innocent eyes were wide with confusion. Mom, who is he? Why do we have to trust him? Eli's voice trembled but held a note of yearning. Because if we don't do something, we might never see her again. The man interjected, frustration flickering across his features. She needs Eli to be with her. It's the only way they'll let her go. Julia felt a knot tighten in her stomach. It twisted painfully as the weight of their situation settled in. Could she really trust him? Mom Sarah whispered again, tugging at Julia's sleeve. What if it's a trap? We don't even know him. Caught between her instincts and desperation, Julia searched the man's face. Did he truly care about Eli's mother? Or was he merely playing on her fears? She could see the fear mirrored in Sarah's and Eli's eyes, both looking to her for guidance. A scream of sirens pierced the quiet evening. The sound echoed in the distance, growing louder. Panic surged inside her. We don't have much time. They could be looking for him right now, the man warned, glancing down the road, his body tense. Julia hesitated, then made up her mind. All right, we'll go with you, but you have to promise that you'll protect them. You can't put them in danger. A glimmer of relief washed over the stranger's face. Promise. I need your trust for just a little while. I'll explain everything on the way. Eli, come here, Julia said, kneeling down to his level. I need you to listen. We're gonna follow him, but you have to stay close. Okay? And if anything feels wrong, we will leave. Do you understand? She grasped his shoulders, her gaze fully focused on him. He nodded, still trembling but trusting. Sarah stood by Julia's side, her expression torn between apprehension and support. We can do this together, Mom, she said, momentarily finding courage in the bond they shared. Julia took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. Let us go. As they stepped toward the man, each of them holding hands tightly, Julia couldn't shake the feeling of dread crawling up her spine. They were stepping into the unknown, leaving the remnants of their home behind, but they had no choice. They needed to save Elias' mother. The man led them away, glancing over his shoulder often as if he could feel unseen eyes on them. They followed down the street, the fading light cloaking them in shadows. But just as they reached the end of the block, a loud honk pierced the air, and they all froze. Julia spun around, her heart leaping to her throat. Car was racing toward them. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, but the walls were closing in. Run, she shouted, adrenaline pounding in her veins. Panic surged through the group as they scattered. Julia grabbed Elias' hand and pulled him close, but the man was already turning away, angling himself toward the approaching vehicle as the headlights swallowed him in a blinding glow. Go, get to safety. What is happening? Eli cried, but Julia had no answer as she pulled Sarah and him toward the shadows of the trees lining the street. With her heart in her throat, she couldn't help but wonder. Would they ever reach Elias' mother? And what awaited them if they did? The tension dripped from the air like rain on a summer evening, thick and clingy. In that moment, she realized the truth: nothing would ever be the same, and whoever was watching them from the shadows was waiting for their next move. As they dashed into the dark alley, she felt the weight of the world crashing down on her. But amidst the chaos, a nagging thought wouldn't let go. Who was the man really, and how was he connected to Elias' mom? With every fleeting moment, Julia knew they were running out of time and answers. Julia pressed deeper into the shadows, her heart slamming against her ribs as she pulled Eli and Sarah along. The urgency pulsed in her veins, a stark reminder that they were in grave danger. The alley smelled of damp concrete and stale rain, every corner echoing their hurried breaths. Where do we go now? Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Stay quiet. Follow me, Julia replied, fierce determination mingling with her rising panic. She needed to keep them focused, to protect Eli and Sarah from the chaos threatening to engulf them. They ducked behind a stack of old crates, the rough wood scraping against Julia's arms, but she barely noticed. Her eyes darted toward the street, heart racing as the car screeched to a halt. She caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure stepping out tall, imposing. It was him, the man. What if he's working with them? Eli asked, his voice small, trembling. He's not, Julia insisted, though her confidence wavered under the weight of uncertainty. He cares about your mom. We need to trust him. For now. She held Eli close, able to feel the knot of fear in his small body. Julia needed to be strong for them. Moments passed like years, each second dragging as they waited, breath held tight in their chests. Finally, the figure of the man slipped out of sight, ducking into another alleyway. We have to go, Julia whispered. Now. They crossed the alley and peered into the next street, half expecting to see the man turn back. But there was nothing, only the dim flicker of streetlights illuminating a path ahead. With a rush of resolve, Julia led them forward, hoping she was making the right choice as they stepped into the street. The air felt thick, almost electric, with anticipation. "Where do you think he went?" Sarah asked, glancing back nervously. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving." Julia's voice was steady, though the unease gnawed at her. They had to reach Eli's mother. It felt like their only chance to reclaim a piece of the life they had lost. Suddenly, they heard footsteps echoing behind them. Julia pressed her back against the rough wall, instinctively drawing her children close. They peeked out from behind cover, their breaths catching as they watched two dark figures emerge into view. "They can't see us," she murmured, panic clawing at her throat. As the figures drew closer, one of them raised a hand, illuminated under the flickering light. "What do you think they've found?" A voice sneered, thick with malice. Julia's heart sank. They were hunting the man, and now they were hunting her kids too. "Stay still," she breathed, eyes wide as shadows neared, lingering too close to comfort. "What if they see us?" Eli murmured, clutching Julia's arm. "We can't let them," she whispered back, feeling the weight of her promise to keep them safe. Time seemed to stop as the dark figures loomed nearer, their faces just out of reach of the light. Just then, a booming noise erupted from the direction of the road they were followed. The men turned, confusion flickering across their faces before they burst into action, darting away from the alley. Julia saw the opportunity. "This way," she urged, pulling the kids along, feeling the adrenaline surge through her. They sprinted, out into the street, bolting toward the next corner as they turned. There it was, the man, standing beneath a flickering light that illuminated his face. Relief washed over Julia momentarily, though it was quickly replaced with anxiety. Where had he been? "Come on," he shouted, beckoning them. "This way." Julia hesitated. Her heart pounded with uncertainty, but she couldn't let that stop them. "Trust him. He's our only shot," she urged, pushing her fears aside for her children's sake. They dashed toward him, and just as they reached the gateway into the next block, she realized. It was more than just hope driving her now. She was carrying the weight of her family's future on her shoulders, and this was the moment. But as they raced toward the man, another sound echoed in the distance, louder sirens, sharper, closer. Something deep inside Julia twisted. Uncomfortably, the chase was far from over. "Quick, we need to hide," the man urged as they dove toward a narrow entrance, a darkened store entrance that beckoned them like a shelter as they pressed inside. Julia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "What now?" The man turned, his eyes steely. "We need to regroup. I'll explain everything, but first you need to understand. They're closer than you think." Julia's chest tightened. What truth was he about to reveal? And why did it feel like their real fight was just beginning? Inside the store, the air was stale and saturated with the scent of old cardboard and dust, but it felt safe. Julia pressed her back against the wall, heart racing, as Eli and Sarah huddled close beside her. The dim light flickered above, casting wavering shadows that danced eerily around them. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart and the faint echo of sirens in the distance. "We have to stay quiet," she breathed, urging the kids to remain still. She could see fear reflected in their eyes, the uncertainty of their next move hanging heavily in the air. "Whatever happens, stick together." The man stood at the entrance, scanning the street outside, his shoulders tense. "They won't give up easily," he said, his voice low but steady. "But if they come in here, we'll need a plan." A murmur of worry fluttered through Julia's mind. "What do you know?" Even as she asked, she wrestled with the thought that she might not be ready for the answer. "Why are they after you?" "They think I have something they want," he replied, his gaze darting back to the street. "And it involves your family." "What do you mean?" Julia felt her stomach drop. "What could you have that relates to us?" He stepped closer, urgency flickering across his face. "Your mother, and the danger that surrounds her. It's not just me they're hunting." Panic welled inside Julia. "What danger?" "My mom's just Julia." He held out a hand, silencing her. "I can't explain it all now. Just know that you and your children are at the center of this. Your mother was involved in something bigger than you realized." Julia's mind raced. Questions whirled like leaves caught in a gale. Involved in what? Her mother? This was too much to take in while they were still exposed. "We need to get out of here," she said, glancing toward the darkened storefront that felt suddenly more like a trap than a refuge. "We can't just sit here." He nodded, but his expression was grave. "We have to wait just a little bit longer. If we rush out now, we risk running right into them." Julia swallowed hard, fighting the surge of panic that threatened to overwhelm her. The last thing she wanted was to gamble with her children's lives. As they waited, Julia found the strength to look into Eli's and Sarah's eyes. She needed them to believe it would be all right. She touched Eli's cheek, whispering, "We're gonna find your mom." "Eli, promise. Do you really think we can?" he asked, his eyes shining with both hope and fear. "We will," she insisted, though doubt gnawed at her insides. From their hiding spot, the man's expression changed at a low murmur from outside. "They're getting closer," he warned, glancing anxiously up and down the street. "We need to make a break for it. Ready?" Julia nodded, forcing herself to breathe steadily. The kids were counting on her. "On my count," he said, crouching low. Julia positioned her body in front of Eli and Sarah as if to shield them from the world beyond. 1, 2, 3. They burst from the store like startled birds, running hard away from their shelter. Adrenaline surged in Julia's veins, every fleeting glance over her shoulder sending a jolt of panic through her. But just as they took cover around the corner, a shout echoed from behind. "There they are." Julia's breath caught in her throat. They were spotted. "Run!" the man shouted, pushing ahead of them as they dashed into another alleyway. The shadows wrapped around them like a cloak, hiding their frantic flight. But the fear pressed against Julia's chest thick and suffocating as they sprinted deeper into the maze of streets. Julia felt a shifting surge. The chase was escalating, but even more concerning was the knowledge that with each corner they turned, they were stepping further into an unknown peril. There was little time to ponder what the man had said about her mother. It felt like everything had turned upside down, and she was still clinging to hope, even as the shadows whispered of danger looming ahead. "What do we do next?" she asked breathlessly, the urgency of the moment relentless. "Trust me," the man replied, looking fierce yet haunted. "But first we have to get to safety." If only they could pause for a moment, tethered in the safety of illusion, but the reality pressed in with threatening force. How could they possibly navigate the storm swirling around them? But in the depths of this chaos, a revelation flashed in Julia's mind. What if she was more capable than she thought? Little did she know, the truth she'd soon unearth could change everything. Could she really trust the man beside her, and what would it cost her if she did? The alleyway twisted like a dark tunnel, and Julia's heart raced as they sprinted deeper into the unknown. The man led the way, glancing back every few seconds to ensure Eli and Sarah were close. She stumbled momentarily, but Eli's small hand tightened around hers, pulling her forward. In that small gesture, she found the strength to keep going. "Over there," the man shouted, pointing to a wrought iron gate at the end of the alley. It was old and rusty, but it seemed like their only shot at eluding whoever was after them. Julia's pulse quickened. They needed to be inside something secure, a place to gather their thoughts. As they approached the gate, she could hear heavy footsteps echoing behind them, chasing shadows lost in the gathered darkness. The man flung the gate open with a forceful push, revealing a narrow courtyard shrouded in silence. Once inside, they ducked behind a large potted plant that had long been neglected, the dirt spilling out as vines climbed up like fingers reaching for something they had lost. "Just catch your breath," the man whispered, crouching low. Julia could see the tension radiating from him, every line of his face focused, every breath deliberate. "Who are they?" she asked, more hushed than before, pain creeping into her voice. "Why are they targeting my family?" He leaned closer, his eyes serious. "I wish I could explain everything. It's complicated. Your mother, she's been involved with people who have dangerous secrets. Secrets that, if uncovered, could put you all in more danger than you realize." Julia swallowed hard. Doubt churned within her. What kind of secrets? Secrets about power and influence. Your mom. She took a stand against something she thought was wrong. It's why they're after her now, he said, his voice steady. Yet Julia sensed the weight of regret behind it. And that's why you're caught in the middle. Elias' voice broke through the tension. Mom? Is Grandma okay? Julia's heart ached at the worry in her son's voice. She's okay, she reassured quietly, though she wasn't sure how true that was. The man glanced around, his frown deepening. We can't stay here long. They'll find us, and if they do, they won't just be looking for me. He hesitated. We have to get to a safer location. What about the plan? Julia pressed. You said we needed a plan. Right? He visibly shook off the urgency of the moment, shifting his tone to something more assertive. There's a safe house nearby. It used to be a refuge for people like me. Once we're inside, we can figure out what to do next. Julia felt a flicker of hope. And my mom? Can we contact her? His gaze softened, briefly revealing a hint of vulnerability. I don't know. But if we're quick, we can find a way to keep you and the kids safe first. That has to come first. Just then, the echo of voices flooded the courtyard, followed by the sharp sound of footsteps nearing the gate. Adrenaline crashed through Julia. There wasn't much time. Now, the man ordered, springing into action. Julia felt the urgency seep into her bones as they darted out from their refuge, weaving through the shadows of the courtyard. They ran toward the end of the alley, the night air now electric with tension, their figures blending into the inky darkness as they sprinted. Julia grasped her children's hands tighter, a protective shield against the unknown. Could they truly find safety? Would she uncover the truth about her mother before it was too late? They reached the street beyond the alley, panting and desperate, but the world felt like a swirling storm. Just ahead, a glimmer of hope appeared. A car with its engine running, parked suspiciously along the curb. Julia's heart raced amidst the chaos. Is that your car? The man nodded, eyes fixed on it. It's the safest way out of here. But the tension pulsing in the air brought another question to the forefront of her mind. Could they reach it before the danger caught up with them? Would trust in this man lead her family to safety or straight into the arms of their pursuers? With one determined breath, they dashed toward the car, the shadows chasing them as urgency wrapped around every step they took. What would happen next? Julia's feet pounded on the pavement as they rushed toward the car. Her heart thundered in her chest, a frantic rhythm matching the urgency of their escape. Shadows danced behind them, echoing the footsteps that threatened to close in. The man reached for the door handle, but from the corner of her eye, Julia saw a flicker of motion, a dark figure emerging from the gloom. Faster! She shouted, instinct kicking in. She could feel the pressure of time racing against them, the air thick with the weight of uncertainty. Eli and Sarah picked up their pace, their small legs fueled by an instinctual need to survive. Julia's grip on their hands never faltered, a lifeline that tied them together against the chaos sprawling around them. The car door swung open, and the man jumped inside, quickly signaling them to follow. Get in now. Julia shoved Eli and Sarah into the back seat, sliding in right after them. The man fired up the engine. The former calm of the alley was replaced by the growl of the car and the echo of their heavy breaths. As the man shifted into gear, Julia dared a glance back. Dark shapes were in the alley, silhouetted creatures chasing the warmth of light that just slipped through the cracks of night. Okay, we need to go. Hold on, he commanded, veering onto the road with a sudden burst of acceleration. Julia looked over to see the streetlights flicker by, blurring into one another, a stream of light that felt both comforting and disorienting. Where do we go? What about Grandma? Elias' voice was small, panic tinging the edges. Julia turned to him, her stomach sinking as she considered how to comfort him. Mom will find her, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. We just have to stay safe. The man glanced at her through the rearview mirror. We will. Promise. But we need to reach the safe house first. His eyes flickered between the road and the mirror, tension chiseling deeper into his brow as they drove through the labyrinth of the city. Julia's thoughts spiraled. What exactly are we running from? She asked. You talk about secrets and danger, But what does that mean for us? He hesitated, the weight of his silence thickening the air between them. It means that your mother's fight made her enemies. Powerful ones who won't hesitate to do anything to protect their interests and silence any opposition. Julia clenched her jaw, her mind racing with visions of her mother standing up for what was right, her passion pressing forth to find truth. But it doesn't always come at a cost that keeps loved ones safe. Who are these people? She pressed, her voice sharper now, fueled by rising anger. And why was she involved? They operate in the shadows. I can't give you all the details yet. It could put you at greater risk, he replied. But your mother has been investigating something that could shake up their foundations. She saw the cracks, and they don't take kindly to being exposed. The fear creeping into Julia's heart transformed into a rage she couldn't contain. My family didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for any of it. Just then, the man hit the brakes hard, slamming Julia forward against the seatbelt. They were stopped at a red light, an unexpected pause that left her nerves thrumming. Listen, he said, turning back to meet her gaze. Trust is all we have right now. We have to be careful. This isn't just about you anymore. They would hurt your mother to get to you. The mention of her mother cut through Julia like ice. She had to know. If they're that dangerous, what if we have to confront them? What will we do? At that moment, the light turned green, and he took off again. Stick together, stay hidden, and we fight when we're ready. Promise me you'll trust me. I won't let anything happen to you or your kids. Julia nodded, but doubt lingered in her chest. She thought of her mother, a whirlwind of strength and determination, caught in a web of deceit and danger now. They sped through the streets, the city becoming a blurred memory behind them. Julia clenched her fists, a mix of fear and determination rising within her. What if there's more at stake than we realize? What if we're not just running away? The man's eyes widened slightly, the weight of her words sinking in. Then we might have to stand, gather what we can, and fight for the truth. As the car rounded a corner, a piercing uncertainty filled the air. What awaited them at the safe house? Would they find answers or only lead to more danger? And what deeper secrets lay behind the shadows that seemed to follow? Julia's heart drummed in her chest as they rounded a final corner. Ahead stood an unassuming building, cloaked in darkness. Instinctively, she knew this was only the beginning of their fight. But what truth awaited could change everything they thought they knew. When they pulled up to the safe house, Julia felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. The building was nondescript, an old brick structure that had seen better days, nestled between two larger, more modern buildings. Yet it had an air of promise about it, a chance for answers, and perhaps some semblance of safety. Everybody out quickly, the man instructed, his voice urgent. They scrambled out of the car, Julia holding Eli's hand tightly while keeping Sarah close at her side. Stay behind me, Julia said, her voice steady but low, guarding her children instinctively. As they entered, the inside of the safe house was dimly lit, giving off an old, musty scent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Julia placed her hands on both sides of Eli's thin shoulders, kneeling down to meet his gaze. We're safe here, she whispered, her heart steadying from the rush of adrenaline, though the weight of fear still loomed over them. Sarah stood nearby, her brow furrowed, eyes scanning the room. The man flicked on a light, revealing a space that felt strangely like home despite its disarray. Papers were scattered on the dining table, maps pinned to the walls, and evidence of lives lived in the shadows clung to the corners. This is a temporary refuge, but it's secure, he explained, glancing over his shoulder at them both. Listen carefully. You two have to stay quiet. I'll explain everything. Why did you bring us here? Julia asked, the urgency of their situation brewing anger inside her. What exactly are we dealing with? I'll explain everything, he repeated, running a hand through his hair. Promise. But we can't draw attention. Those people, they will come looking for you if they suspect you're involved. Julia nodded slowly, feeling her heart race again. And my mom? What can you tell us about her? The man lowered his eyes for a moment, obviously grappling with the weight of truth. Your mother took a stand. She discovered things that people would kill to keep hidden. It started with investigating financial discrepancies but turned into something much larger. Something they'll do anything to cover up. She's in danger, Julia, and we need to find her before it's too late. Julia's breath caught. But how? What can we do? At the core of this is a network of people who will stop at nothing to maintain their power. Your family is tangled in this because your mom made a powerful enemy. We need intel, indications of where she might be. If we can find the connections, we might be able to track her down. Eli tugged at Julia's sleeve. She turned to him, voice thick with emotion. This isn't your fault. She soothed, brushing a thumb over his cheek. We will find Grandma. Promise. Mom, I'm scared. Eli's voice trembled. Innocence shining through the shadow of fear. What if we can't find her? The man interjected, we will find her, Eli. But we need your mom's strength to do this. We need you all to believe. Despite the uncertainty, Julia felt a flicker of hope ignite in her heart. Her mother's courage echoed within her, and she could feel that strength surfacing. We can do this, Julia asserted, her voice growing firmer. We can find her together. The man nodded, and Julia could see he was impressed with the way she was rallying. All right, the first step is to gather everything we know about your mother's investigation. If we can get our hands on her notes or anything she left behind, it could guide us on our next move. Julia glanced around the room, her mind racing. Let us start looking. They spread out, the tension palpable as they sifted through boxes, stacks of papers, and binders. After what felt like an eternity, Julia uncovered a tattered notebook buried beneath an old jacket in a corner. Hope surged through her veins as she flipped it open. Each scribbled note and frustrating half-sentences revealed her mother's thoughts, piecing together clues that sparked recognition. I've got something, she called out. What is it? The man rushed over, eyes sharpening. Julia pointed to notes about a meeting at the old warehouse on the edge of town, a place her mother had mentioned before. This might be where she's looking for evidence. It's a lead. Then we have to get there now, he insisted, urgency thick in his tone. They might still be there. We'll need to be careful. Let us move, Julia said. Uncertainty still loomed overhead, but she felt the pull of hope guiding her forward, a fierce determination to find her mother and protect her family. As they gathered their belongings, Julia turned to her children. Together we can face anything, no matter how scary, she reassured them. The fear that clouded Eli's eyes shifted to a flicker of trust, and Sarah's hands, still shaking, squeezed Julia's in affirmation. The man glanced back at them, intensity etched into his features. Stay close to me. Whatever happens, I'll keep you safe. They made their way outside, the evening shadows wrapping around them as they emerged once more into the night. The dim streetlights felt like beacons leading them toward hope, a fragile thread connecting them to the courage ahead. And as they ventured further, a profound realization settled deep within Julia's heart. The power within them was stronger than fear, bound together by love, transformed by necessity. This was not just about her mother. It was about their fight to reclaim their lives, their family. Together, they would walk into the storm, and together, they would emerge victorious. Let us do this, Julia whispered, determination igniting their frantic steps, as they moved toward the uncertain future, a future they would forge together. Honor the journey, honor the fight, and remember, each story and struggle is a chance to transform. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss a beat of the next incredible tales. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this story flowing. Comment on your feelings and reactions. Your voice matters in our community. And for those who understand the power of connection, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. The moment is now.